and welcome to Life After Baby on 1520 AM WCHE and streaming live on WCHE1520.com. From bottles to books, spit up to social media, diapers to dorms, and everything in between, each week I interview parenting experts. In honor of National Safety Month and a busy travel season right around the corner, we invited Amanda Pezick and Sergeant Roger Ollis from Safe Kids Chester County to talk about traveling safety tips. Safe Kids Chester County provides programs to schools and community groups to educate parents, children, and caregivers on a variety of injury prevention topics. So welcome. Thank you for being with us today. Amanda Pezick is the project coordinator for Chester County Highway Safety in the District Attorney's Office. She organizes Safe Kids Chester County's yearly car seat check events, along with scheduling car seat check appointments for our families and assisting our families in need of a car seat donation through the process. Sergeant Ollis has been serving in the City of Coatesville Police Department since 2009 and began as a member of the Patrol Division. He sits on multiple boards and committees, and his objective is to reduce crime, increase safety, foster relationships, and give the police department positive relevance within the community. And Sergeant Ollis has 4 kids, ages 23, 22, 16, and 11. So thank you again for joining us today. And Sergeant Ollis, you're certainly well qualified to be here on 2 different levels, in your profession and in your fatherhood.
I certainly hope so.
You can contribute from both perspectives. So why don't we start with just an overview of Safe Kids Chester County and the services that you provide for the community? Sergeant Ollis, do you want to start with that?
Well, I am a piece of the puzzle. There are several organizations that have representation throughout Chester County that share their gifts, so to speak. Safe Kids likes to say we like to keep kids safe at home, at play, and on the way. And I know today we're going to be talking quite a bit about car safety in and around cars is really an important topic for us at Safe Kids. But there are members from other police departments, from the medical field, from children, youth, and family, and so many others that give their time and then work together to ensure that there are events available and programming available for families within Chester County to keep their kids safe.
Excellent. And so some of our children might see these programs in elementary schools, is that correct?
Yeah, we do something called The Back is Where It's At. And it's an interactive educational program for ages 5 and below. So we have preschool as well as kindergarten classes. And we get to put Egbert in a car and show what happens when Egbert doesn't wear his seatbelt. And we crash that car, and Egbert is an egg that ends up in pieces, and the car's blown apart. And Amanda does a great job with demonstrating that wreck. And there's a sing-along, there's informational video. It's really engaging for the kids, and that's important if they're going to take something from it.
Absolutely. So, Amanda, you're a performer as well as a safety expert?
Oh, yes. Lots of practice.
You know, that really is important. I was just telling my son that I recall a program in my elementary school in 79, with this Ready Eddie electric guy who gets himself electrocuted, or he's not smart around electricity. And I remember some lines from it. I remember what he looked like. I had my son trying to Google it to find it because that's how much of an impression it was, entertaining enough to me that I remembered it this many years later. So you're probably having a wider impact than you even realized.
Well, and we hope that even if we're telling this message to the kids, even if they go home and tell mom, hey, mom, buckle up. Like we tell them, tell your parents, put your seatbelt on as well. So even if we can reach the adults through the kids,
right,
we're reaching somebody.
Absolutely. Is that still an issue? You know, in my life, I changed dramatically probably when I was about 20 years old, and will never get in a car now without a seatbelt. But there was a time in my life when I didn't wear one. Do you still have to convince people to wear a seatbelt?
On occasion, sometimes inspiration comes through the form of a citation, other times a warning. But kids are going to do what their parents do in the car.
Right.
And it's important that parents wear their seatbelt, not only to be a good role model, but if there is a crash, they become that projectile that harms their children.
And so can you review, just in case anyone is not familiar, what is the law in terms of seatbelt use for an adult So for the parents, you must be buckled, correct? Or you can be cited?
Well, in Pennsylvania, it is a secondary offense. It's not a primary offense. So, for example, you don't look like someone that drives a car excessively fast, but if I were to pull you over for speeding and you were not wearing your seatbelt, then you would receive 2 tickets.
Okay.
For under 18, it's a primary violation. So if we observe a minor operating a motor vehicle without a seatbelt, yes, we can pull them over for that offense. But for adults, it's a secondary violation. I don't know how much you want me to get into specific vehicle code numbers and that type of thing. Just know that everyone should wear it. They save lives. If you do not wear one and you're pulled over for another violation, you could end up with 2 tickets. Or if you're under 18, it's a primary violation.
And you can get pulled over for that. Okay.
Yes.
And then I know we started discussing this a little bit before we went on air, but can you review the very general basics of what kids should be, how they should be restrained in the different age groups and what that should look like? Because I think I have looked many times, as my oldest child is 14, and I've spent a lot of time on the internet trying to find one resource that I can go to say, when do I turn them around? When do I move them to the front, etc. And I have a 12-year-old son who, when my daughter was 12, I thought that she was okay to move to the front seat, so I let her start riding up front. Well, I think the recommendation has changed in the last 2 years, maybe. Yep. So now my son is 12, and he's begging to move to the front seat, and I won't let him do it. So, but I still have yet to produce a concrete piece of evidence to show him that he really should be in the back. So if you can just give us an overview of how and where kids should be restrained at different ages.
So kids 13 and under should always be in the back seat. That's why we do our one program called The Back is Where It's At, because the back is the safest for anyone under 13. Like Sergeant Ollis said, airbags are for big kids, big adults. If that airbag deploys and there's a child in the front seat, we tell them, where they're sitting, that's going to hit them right in the face if they're not old enough or big enough to be up there. For children that are in car seats, rear-facing, Pennsylvania law is 2 years old. You must be rear-facing. So after 2, you should leave them rear-facing as long as you can. The car seat will say the weight limit of when you need to turn it, the weight and height. So Pennsylvania law is 2 years, or as long as they can stay in that seat rear-facing, and then they'll go to their forward-facing. Then they should be in a car seat until 8 years old, which would be the booster seat at that point.
Wow, okay, until 8 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So what if you have a really big 6-year-old or 7-year-old? Does that make a difference, or should you still really have them in a booster?
Still in a seat. Yep, still in a car seat. You just have to kind of find the seat that fits them best and it works for them. If they're, some kids they get taller quicker, and a lot of parents want to turn them rear facing because their legs are uncomfortable and they're against the back of that seat. But we always say in a crash, it's better to have, a broken leg as opposed to if they're forward facing, they don't have that neck support and break their spine.
Okay.
So it is, yeah.
So a lot of the things that we as parents might think is logical to us, there are other reasons behind it that we might not be thinking of. Like you said, like bone structure or neck support or things like that kids don't have, that you can't necessarily look at and see.
Correct.
Okay. Now, does it have to be a booster? I know there are booster seats with backs on them, or can it just be the little flat chair that just goes under their butt?
There are a couple reasons for the booster. The biggest reason is so the child is raised up, so the seatbelt and lap belt go across the strongest parts of the body, the shoulders and the hips. And if the seatbelt is not across the shoulders, what children or even some adults will inevitably do is shift their arm through so the seatbelt's not actually on the shoulder. You see that if it's too high up and it's in the neck and it's rubbing.
Okay.
Sometimes we even see pregnant moms do that because they feel uncomfortable. But then you only have one section of restraint, and that would be across the hips on the lap belt. You see high back boosters because there are some cars that don't have headrests behind, and you want something behind the child in the event of a crash that's going to protect their neck from snapping back.
Okay.
So you'll see a high back booster on occasion, and I like them because they also have a belt guide which is helpful. It keeps the shoulder belt where it should be, and also offers a little bit of side impact protection.
Right.
But if you have a headrest behind the child, you don't technically need a high back booster.
High back booster. Okay. All right. That's a good clarification because I always wondered about that. Now, here's something else. You're solving all the things I've always questioned over the years for my own family.
Okay.
What about when it's late at night and your kid is tired, or even during the day, and they want to kind of lay sideways in the seat? So they're sort of in the seat belt and they're not, and you're saying, sit up, that looks dangerous. And they say, no, look, I still have my seatbelt on.
I would say that seatbelts are designed to be placed in a certain way, and with the person using them positioned in an upright seated position. It'll be far more effective.
Okay. So I should also say sit up.
Yes.
I recommend using the word please. Please sit up. Would maybe be helpful.
As long as I can get your phone number to back me up when I need it.
It's 911.
That would be very much appreciated. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. Before we do, though, we need to thank our sponsor. Everyone knows how fast kids grow, so why spend all that money when you can get the same styles at a fraction of the price? Once Upon a Child in Exton has everything your kids need, so save time and money by shopping at Once Upon a Child. Have your kids outgrown those nice overalls? Trade them in for something they can use. Only at Once Upon a Child at the Whiteland Town Center, 193 West Lincoln Highway in Exton. You can reach them by phone at 484-873-3900 and tell them we said hi. We'll be right back with Life After Baby. Welcome back to Life After Baby. I'm Lou Ann Sims, and we're here today with Amanda Pezick, who is the project coordinator for Chester County Highway Safety in the District Attorney's Office, and she works with Safe Kids Chester County, as well as Sergeant Ollis, who has been serving the City of Coatesville's Police Department since 2009, and also works to educate and help our community in terms of traveling safely, especially with children. We talked a little bit about restraint requirements in a vehicle for adults and for children. What do you say to, I've had some people that I know who, especially, let's say you're in a vacation situation and you have a lot of kids, all of a sudden you need to get from point A to point B, and they think, well, we're just going around the corner, or it's just this one time we can throw a kid in without a seatbelt, or that kind of a thing. Do you have any commentary on that sort of situation?
I typically share with caregivers and parents that most fatalities occur within a couple miles of the home. And some of the worst crashes I've responded to have been kids that have been properly restrained, but a parent choosing not to wear a seatbelt. And it's a tough thing to swallow sometimes. I look through the lens of being a parent, and when I see children injured that it could have been avoided, it's sad in a lot of ways. I'm sure
it is. I can't imagine having to deal with that. And are you finding there are situations where people just aren't using car seats? They don't have one.
We find both. So there are some families who are in need. Obviously, car seats aren't the cheapest. They're not the most expensive. It all varies. So I mean, I'm not a police officer, but I would assume there's some situations where they couldn't afford one, or maybe it's just a negligent parent who just doesn't want to buy one because, I mean, like you said, people think that they're just running somewhere, like they'll be safe. They can hold the baby, and now with the ride-sharing apps especially, I think it can be a problem because they don't want to install the car seat, or they don't know how to properly, so they just hold the kid, and the kid's not properly restrained, and that's a whole new world of danger there.
Or if you have two cars in your family and you don't want to, maybe you have a different car for the day and you don't want to move it from one car to another or something like that. So what about resources for people in financial need that don't have a car seat?
Yeah, there are times where there'll be a caregiver that is in need of a seat. And the partnership we have with Safe Kids Chester County and the Chester County Highway Safety Project, we can reach out, and if there's a seat available, they'll make it available for that family, and we will serve at the police department as the educational component, as well as help with installation and ensuring that their kids are safe while on the road.
Excellent.
Because we feel that parents need to be held accountable, but there are sometimes special circumstances, and issuing a citation is a result. It's not necessarily the answer.
Got it. What for people who are using car seats? I know you offer these car seat safety checks, which is wonderful. Is there a common mistake in car seat installation that you can talk about that people could go out today and double check what they're doing, make sure they're not making a mistake?
Yeah, so there's all kinds of mistakes that come in. I would say to look at the tightness of the seat. You want your seat to move less than an inch at the belt path, which when they come in, a lot of them are very, very loose. So the trick is to really put your body weight into your seat. Stand on your seat, sit on it, put your knee into it, and pull that. Whether you do the lower anchors or seatbelt. With a seatbelt, you just have to remember to lock it up top. You just pull the seatbelt all the way out and then let it go back in and lock. But I think definitely that the seat's tight, and then it would come down to harnessing as well, whereas that chest clip needs to be on the chest at armpit level. You want to pinch at the shoulders to make sure there's no slack in their harness so that it's tight enough. And I think that's a big problem as well.
I can say from my own observance of just when my kids were little and watching other kids in car seats that a lot of them barely have it buckled. It seemed it's so loose for the child to be, quote, comfortable that I feel like there's really almost no point in having it, right?
Yeah, and that's what we see. We see misuse with the harnessing. Whether it's not in the right spot. For example, the shoulder harness for under 2 should be at the shoulders or a touch below. And for over 2 years of age, the shoulder harness should be at the shoulder or just above. And if you're not real familiar with the car seat installation, sometimes people want to get, I don't want to call it lazy, but they'll start at the very top because it takes a lot to take that seat out and redo the harnessing. I also see heavy winter coats under the harness system in the wintertime. And that's a no-no. You think you have a snug fit, but in a crash, those harnesses could compress, and you think you have that snug fit, but the child could eject. So if it's cold, put a blanket or something over the harness system, but don't put a child in the car seat in a heavy, puffy coat.
Wow, that is eye-opening to me because I never knew that, and I always thought maybe like I'm adding extra padding. I made the car seat extra soft and safe.
And what it also does, and Amanda mentioned the chest clip. It's really important. It's at the underarm height, and if you have a heavy coat, sometimes that clip goes down toward the belly, and again, in a significant crash, the child could eject. So it's all about putting them in correctly, the child in the proper seat the right way, and hoping that you're not in a crash.
Right.
It's all about preventing injury in the event of a crash.
Okay, that's a good one. I like learning things that I didn't know before. So tell us what happens at the car seat check, and is there one coming up, or when is the next one that people can know about?
So we have car seat checks at West Goshen Police Department every second and fourth Thursday of each month. We have West Whiteland Fire Company 4 times a year, and then we have Paoli Hospital once a month from April to September. So parents, it would call me, we would connect, we set them up with an appointment for that event. They come there, we go over the installation. It's hands-on, so they will know how to put that car seat in if they're home and have to do it by themselves or switch cars, like you said. So we really get hands-on, and they leave with a safe seat, but we also educate them throughout the process and talk about the harnessing and what to check for in the seat, projectiles in the vehicle, and it's about a 15 to 20-minute appointment, but they leave very educated and comfortable installing their own seats.
Okay.
I'm glad Amanda mentioned projectiles in the vehicle. I spoke earlier about people being potential projectiles, but it's holiday season now, and people are trying to fit 10 pounds of sand in a 5-pound bag. So they're at the mall or another shopping complex, and they load their car up with all their items that they've purchased. They should really go in the trunk, because if somebody rear ends that vehicle, those items are going throughout the car. Or if the car were to roll in a significant crash, those items are bouncing off of people, drivers, passengers, kids in safety seats. It's important to stow those things away.
You know what, I remember that from my driver's ed class in high school, but it has sort of eroded in my memory, and I'm guilty of. I remember the example back then was a tissue box. Like if you had a tissue box in your car, it could fly back and injure someone in a collision. I also remember getting rear-ended when I was about 18, and I had just gotten a cheeseburger from Roy Rogers. This was so disappointing. You could see it had a big impact on me. But I got rear-ended, and the cheeseburger not only came out of its wrapper, and like the pickle flew across the floor of my car. And it was such a lesson to me on what a small impact, what it could do. You would never think that something like that could be possible from something, and that was nothing compared to what a serious car accident would be like.
Yeah, every 10 miles per hour is 100 pounds of force.
Wow.
Well, and that's what, I mean, you just had a pickle, but when you look at a baby, a lot of the problems we see at the car seat checks as well are those mirrors on the back, that headrest up there, so parents can look back and see the baby.
Yes.
They don't realize that that is a projectile right at your baby's face. So, you know, it's just Velcroed on. That could very easily come off, hit the baby, shatter. You know, also the window, the sunshades.
Yes.
They are metal poles, the ones with the suction cups. They're metal poles. And again, we don't think much of them, but that's a projectile to the baby. So there are a lot of products that are sold for your baby and the car safety, but realistically, they're not that safe.
They are. And I love helping a mom with an infant seat because then we talk about all the things that she was fortunate enough to get at a shower. All the things that we don't recommend.
Right? Yeah, I still have that mirror in my car because my kids are well out of their car seats, but I could see them better in that little mirror.
Well, then it comes down to that too, because now you're looking back in your mirror and you're not looking at the road.
Right.
So it can hurt you both ways there.
Oh, wow. I'm going to just take the train from now on. We are running out of time, but a couple of things I want to make sure we cover. As we prepare for this busy holiday travel season, how can families prepare for a safe road trip? And what supplies do you recommend that families carry in their cars? Anything in particular that you think is a good idea? In the way back in the trunk, of course.
Way back in the trunk. Well, I always say give yourself, before even giving yourself plenty of time to take that road trip, get plenty of sleep.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going an extended distance, you want to be at your best. And then you pack your car the right way, with as much in the trunk as you can put in there, and everyone properly restrained. In terms of emergencies, maybe a first aid kit, I've seen rain ponchos, Band-Aids, extra water. I haven't seen any personal road flares or anything like that, but I've seen cones, and because if you become disabled on the side of the road with a flat tire, it shouldn't be the first time that you've ever tried to figure out how to change your tire. But pylons, reflective clothing, things like that, you want to prepare and hope you don't need them.
Right. How about this is from my experience, and maybe I'm just jealous because I don't have a DVD player in my car, but do you think it's safe for kids to be watching a movie? Or is that too distracting to the driver?
I think with headphones, it's fine. If the driver cannot see it, then the driver might want to sing along to some of these cartoons and things, but
you don't see issues with that, or
I do not.
Okay, I think it was my parents' minivan I drove one time, and I felt like wherever the screen came down from the ceiling was enough in my peripheral vision that I felt like it was distracting to me, and I thought, how can anyone drive like this? So we didn't do it, but maybe it's positioned differently in other cars so that it's not a problem. Okay, you were telling us before the show, I think it's important for this to mention, about this time of year and the number of accidents that we see. Do you want to speak to that, Amanda?
Yeah, so Thanksgiving is when we see the most crashes throughout the year. So it's just important to remember that even though you might feel safe in the car and you're being safe, wearing your seatbelt, not on your phone, just be aware that not every driver is being that safe as well. So you really have to be focused on that road and think about what other drivers might be doing. So, yep, Thanksgiving is most crashes. So
yeah, most traveled holiday.
Yeah, that's
so. Just because of sheer numbers on the road, you're going to have a uptick of crashes and injuries.
Okay. Yeah, I always say, especially when somebody just wants to run around the corner with an unbuckled kid. If you knew when you were going to get into an accident, no one would ever get into an accident, right? It's not something that you can stop and prepare for. Mm-hmm. Well, anything else? Any other tips you want to add? Anything we didn't cover that you think is critical? think it's very valuable for people to have this information because we all deal with it most days of our lives, and to have how about a resource is there a website where people can go back and review? Can you want to share that with us?
Yeah, so we have the Safe Kids website. It's just safekids.org. It's all kinds of resources. If you're looking to get your seat checked, you can see what's in your area, who you'll contact for that area. We also are on Facebook, Safe Kids Chester County, so we keep up to date with what events we're doing in general, and then our car seat checks, maybe some pictures, and both of those are good resources.
Excellent. So we recommend everyone follow along so you can keep your family as safe as possible this holiday season and always. Well, we are unfortunately out of time for today, but today's episode was brought to you by Once Upon a Child. From adorable outfits to toys, books to sporting gear, they have everything that kids need at a fraction of the cost. Once Upon a Child is located in the Whiteland Town Center, 193 West Lincoln Highway in Exton. Thank you for tuning into Life After Baby. Life After Baby was created and produced by Leslie Hudson and hosted by Luann Sims. Our theme song is by Doug Keller. We'd like to thank Sergeant Ollis and Amanda for joining us today. You can find them on Facebook at Safe Kids Chester County. And when the kids are finally asleep, visit our website at lifeafterbabyshow.com. Find our podcast wherever the finest podcasts are found, and follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Life After Baby Show. And don't forget to take care of yourself so you can take better care of them.